Welcome to the Sabbath Life podcast. This is a space where we share stories about the Abbey of the Heights, the Christian contemplative traditions, and rhythms of life that make us more human and friends with time. I am Peter White, and I'm one of the hosts of the Abbey of the Heights, a Christian retreat space here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And today, I am joined by my friend Tiffany Nagel Monroe. Tiffany, do you want to introduce yourself and share a little bit about who you are and the work that you love doing?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Yeah, I'm Tiffany Nagel Monroe, sometimes followed by titles like Reverend and Doctor. Some of my favorites are Mom and Wife and Omi. I am an ordained elder in the United Methodist Church. So I serve as a senior pastor at Edmond First United Methodist Church in Edmond, Oklahoma. I have also done work and currently am an adjunct professor for St. Paul School of Theology, where I get to teach contextual education uh, and also guide folks through our course of study work on theological heritage and church history. So, those are just little bits about me, and then do spiritual direction and love to engage in leadership with folks in various forms of ministry around the world. So, that's me.
Fantastic. Well, Tiffany was somebody that I wanted to bring onto the podcast and talk to because she has a long history with the Abbey of the Heights and has been a friend of the Abbey for quite some time. And so, Tiffany, do you remember how the Abbey first came on your radar screen?
I did. So I've known you, Peter, for a number of years. And so when it first came on my radar was just hearing and seeing, observing what you were doing as you were starting to vision for it and pulling it together, noticing some of the comments that you're putting out, the posts, newsletters that were coming from you, articles that were coming from you. And it was fascinating to see what God was germinating there. And then I became even more interested in what is my friend Peter up to in Tulsa and how important that kind of spiritual rest and renewal is for folks in my industry. I mean, I believe it is that way for people in every industry, but I'm steeped in this one and recognizing how burned out my colleagues get and how burnout I was feeling at a certain stage in my ministry and wondering what was next for me and thinking, gosh, we lead worship, we lead the sermons, we put together all these services and these studies and these times for reflection and contemplation. But where do we go to be fed and fueled? Where do we go to exhale or to just reconnect with God? And the Abbey seemed to be, through the Sabbath life, this place that could just be an answer to someone like me. And so I was hungry for something, I was thirsty, and I was really interested. And if this was a place that could help me reconnect with the holy in ways that would be healing and renewing and bring refreshment so that I could continue to lead spiritually in the places I was being called. So I was really excited about this and felt also that it was accessible. And it was within a distance I could get to, but I also really felt connected through your work through the Sabbath life and knew how important this was. And so just starting to dabble in it and learn and come and see what you were doing, it was exactly what I'd hoped it would be and was so needed.
Mm. So you say it was exactly what you thought it would be. So from a
Yeah.
distance, you were observing and seeing a bunch of stuff, and so then you got to actually be present and see it
Yeah.
physically. So talk some about that experience. What did you experience when you first came here?
Yeah, so the rhythm of my life is very harried and hurried and lots of demands and it's a job, it's a calling, a vocation that you never really clock out of. And where
Mm,
are the places that you can go and feel like I can clock out for a minute, I can clock out for 30 minutes or an hour or a half a day and just breathe and rest, and is there that within religious life? Because I everything I was going to is leadership conferences and all of these things were so steeped in do more, do better. Here's a new idea, try this, innovate this. And while I love that stuff, it just wasn't fueling my soul. And so when I showed up to the Abbey, and the second you walk in the doors, it's just for me, it was a literal and spiritual exhale of I don't have to bring that stuff with me into this space. In this
mm.
space, I don't have to be the innovative leader. In this space, I don't have to have answers. In this space, I don't have to have an agenda. In this space, I don't have to be pastor. I don't have to be professor. I don't have to be doctor. I don't have to be anything but Tiffany, the child of God in the presence of God. And he felt that immediately crossing the threshold. And one thing that I loved was you walk through the door, and to the right is this place of well curated prayer stations. And I would sit with one, and it had a jar of glitter. And so you're watching the glitter fall and like breathing. And I remember going, gosh, I don't have opportunities, or I haven't made opportunities in my life to just sit and watch glitter fall in water and
Mm,
breathe and pray at the same time. And like, this is so nice. Like, this is allowed. I'm allowed to do this. I don't have to run at this pace all the time. Oh my gosh, it felt so great. And then you'd go to the next station and there was something else for you to do that was equally great but different. Or the hospitality that you find at the Abbey, where it's just make a cup of tea and be. And the prayer stations that were outside, or the library that's curated in a back room and where the sun is just beaming in. All of these things were spaces that I weren't responsible for, that I
mm,
was able to just enjoy and exist in and benefit from, and there wasn't a transaction involved, and
mm.
that was really great.
I'm intrigued by that idea of a space that I wasn't responsible for.
Mhm.
What is it that really spoke to you about that or connected in you? Or like, why do we need spaces like that? And why do we want spaces like that? Because obviously it's good for us to be responsible, right?
Totally. Yeah.
And so, yeah, what do these spaces mean to us?
Yeah, well, I think, in my experience, leadership asks a lot of you, and it can be very isolating, but you're always working to curate sacred spaces or safe spaces or spaces where people can uh, be fed or nurtured or gain something from it. And so there's a responsibility that you have to make sure it's the best space that it can be for those you're serving, and that you're meeting everybody's needs in that. And so you're thinking about every detail. You're thinking about how might a person in this circumstance encounter this space. And so you're trying to think about all the things. And coming into a space that you're not responsible for, I don't have to put it together. I don't have to be concerned about how anybody else finds that space. In that moment, as I'm coming to receive, I can just be in that space. I can be curious. I can look around and go, that's an interesting book. What's that book about? Without having to go, why did you choose that book? Just be curious about it. There's freedom there to
Mm,
exist in a space that I'm not responsible for keeping up with, right? Like the churches that I've led and other classrooms I've been in, it's I am responsible. I'm responsible for making sure that people are having a healthy experience in whatever that space is. And here I get to enjoy the hospitality of someone else's ministry of curating that space. And that is just so welcoming. It's like coming into a a really nice cabin that somebody's curated really well, and it's like, I didn't have to decorate it. I didn't have to worry about any of the pieces to this. I just get to come and be with God and benefit from someone else's heart work, and what a gift that is. And then at the same time, it serves as inspirational fuel to go, "This actually was really great. How could I maybe apply that somewhere else?" Or,
mm,
"How can I bring this kind of sacred sanctuary into my own home or
mm.
into my own place of ministry?" And I love how it's laid out. And also, the world is so busy all the time, and that sometimes you come into a space that's just clean and calm, and you're like, "Oh, this is how it feels not to have your shoulders and your ears." It's so great. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I think as we were putting together the Abbey, I was trying to think about like just a wide variety of people that might need rest because they give so much of themselves.
Mm.
And people that do ministry, one group, I mean, I also think of like people in healthcare or therapists and counselors, even people that are in some kind of like corporate retail setting that are involved in customer service. But speak some too about ministry and why do people involved in ministry need space like this?
Oh gosh, I think so much of what the minister does when called and living into that call in a healthy relationship with God and a healthy understanding of what the role of this call is, we give of ourselves. It's the nature of self giving in many ways. And so you don't just put a service together on a Sunday or a Saturday night for your benefit. You're giving because you know the power that having that relationship with God means in your life. You're trying to make the best for others. You're working with folks every day. You're walking with them through the deepest pits of their grief, deepest heartaches, their soul crying out in lament. And you're walking with, you don't, it's hard, you can't check out from that. And there's ways that it's important to be healthy in that and to find ways to just not carry all of that home, but you love deeply and your empathy is there and you care deeply. And I think it's hard to separate yourself from that vocation at times. I think it's also in our modern world that pastors are having to operate in roles that aren't just pastoral. We're also expected to operate in roles like a CEO, and we're figuring out how to manage, a form of a nonprofit, and we're managing staff, and we're managing HR concerns, and we're managing fundraising and financial concerns and buildings. And, we've cleaned the toilet before we've gone and told the sermon because we're the person that's got to take care of this toilet that's overflowing. Or, you're printing the bulletins and you're putting all these things together, even last minute changes on a Saturday night. And you haven't taken a day off, not because you don't want to, but because someone passed away and you needed to be there for the family and you have a funeral service. And so before you know it, you've gone 7, 14, 21, 28 days without a Sabbath, without a break, because you're the main person running the ship or you're leading a team and trying to make sure that they're all taken care of while also leading all of those things. And so our soul care often gets to be the thing that's the last thing on the list. And it shouldn't be. We know better. It just happens to be that way. And then if you happen to have a family, I got to be a good, I need to be a present wife. I need to be a present mother. There still needs to be food on the table. Who's buying the groceries? And you're managing all of these things. And then you find your time, and scripture is often related to the Bible study you're working on, or the sermon you're writing, or the class you're teaching. And it's like, wow, when was the last time I sat in scripture and savored the word, not for what was going to come of it in some kind of productive lens, but for the fueling of my own soul? And I think so many of us, we know we need rest. We know we need Sabbath. Our bodies are telling us that. Our tired relationships are telling us that, but we don't know where to get it. We don't know how to stop. We don't know how to put those healthy boundaries back in to where our soul care becomes a priority again. And really, to be at
Mm-hmm.
our best, we need that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's not just for pastors. I think that's for anybody in any form of ministry. Chaplains, children's ministers, music ministers, spiritual directors. I think it's all very important that that's an essential part of the rhythm of our life. But we get caught up in the to-do list and the things that have to get done. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you and I have had this conversation before about it feels like there's a gap between a person thinking that I want a retreat, I need to take a retreat,
Hmm.
versus I actually did a retreat.
Yeah.
And so client, like, can you speak something about your own experience feeling that, and then how you might encourage somebody that was in that state of, I know I need to do this, but I don't know the next step to actually make it happen.
Yeah. So, full disclosure, as you know, Peter, I'm not the best at this, and I am a work in progress. But it's also partially how I know it's so important, and in talking to colleagues in a variety of different spaces, we all know it. I think it's hard to, pull out a date and say, like, we know we need retreat. That sounds great. That sounds fantastic. How do we pay for it? And not just the financial thing, it's more, how do I pay for it with my calendar? Because if I
Mhm.
choose that, it means I'm saying no to something else. To say yes to this means something's getting a no. And is that my kids? Is it my work? And it's so hard to say no when this is a service industry and your heart's in it in a different level. So, we know, but then we're also so tired that it's like, oh, I'll take this. And then we may even schedule one. And then it's like, I'm so tired. I don't even know how I'm going to show up on a retreat today. And if I can even, I just need a nap. I need a really big nap. And so there's all kinds of excuses. I am the best at them. But then when you just do it, you force yourself to do it, or you have a spouse like mine who is like, you're going, you're not going to talk yourself out of it. And you go and you're half day, full day, overnight, any of them, even just spending an hour in the Abbey or out in the prayer garden. Oh my gosh, what renewal it brings to my spirit. And I go, why don't I do this more often? I think the hardest part is forcing yourself to say, it's not only is this good for you, not only is this something healthy that you should do, like go to the doctor, go to the dentist, take your vitamins, drink your water, things we know we should be doing. It's just maybe takes a little bit more effort. It's not as convenient. Uh, but you do it and you're like, why don't I do this more often? I need to do this. And it's just getting into the rhythm. And so the first part is it's kind of like showing up to the gym. Like, I got to do this, or
Mm,
putting on the sneakers and going for a walk. I know my dog needs a walk. I don't want to. Okay, well, then go not wanting to and see
mm,
what happens. Like, just
mhm,
see what God's gonna do. And it's amazing every time. I mean, I can't think of a single time when I wasn't arguing with myself about, well, there's all these other things I should be doing.
mhm,
And I didn't go thinking, I shouldn't be doing this for a number of reasons. And then I go and I go, I need to do this every week, multiple times a week. And so it's, yeah, I think it's about rhythm. It's also about choices. And for me in my journey, it's continually about, what do I need to say no to so I can say yes to the invitations that are actually from God? Part of that for me is I don't have to say yes to everything. I can say no to some things, and it's gonna be okay. Our churches are gonna be okay if we're not there 24/7. Actually, they're gonna be healthier and better if we take this time, because we're gonna be
mhm,
healthier and better. The way that we're able to love and serve even our closest, dearest relationships are gonna be healthier and better because we're choosing health in our spiritual component. And honestly, sometimes a healthy dose of minor shame does me good, and it is, to me, it's if I am encouraging those I love and serve to spend time with God and I'm not doing it, we have a problem that's imbalanced, and it's, I need to be practicing what I'm encouraging people to do. And why do I encourage them to do it? Because I know it's healthy and I know it's good. And I know that feeling I get when I've done it. So I better step up and put my money where my preaching is, put my
mhm.
feet where my preaching is.
Yeah, a word I feel you keep using is health and healthy,
Yeah.
and I think that's a really appropriate word here, and it makes me think too that, like, a journey to health isn't always convenient,
Oh
and
my
it
gosh.
requires intentionality
Yeah,
and choices, like you said. Um,
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
have
mean,
to
I
say
think,
no to things if I wanna be healthy.
yeah, yeah. And it doesn't have to feel like, some form of scarcity, some form of withholding. It doesn't have to feel like punishment. This is actually a gift to
Yeah.
ourselves. But we live in a culture that is like, give more, transaction, produce. And it's the complete opposite of what we're called to do through the word. And it's exactly what God is telling us not to do. And if we look at the
Mhm,
example of Jesus pulling away constantly, even when it was inconvenient, maybe for his disciples, but like, I'm getting away from you. I'm going to pray for a little bit. It's, yeah, I can love God. I can love your people better if I step
mhm,
away from them for a minute so that I can care for myself, but care for myself in your presence and hear your healing words over me. And whatever that's bringing, growth, healing, correction, whatever that is, those are the things that we really need to have in our lives. And it's countercultural. So it may feel weird even to the people we're serving. Well, why weren't you in the office? Well, I was spending time with God. Well, but what about this? I was spending time with God. This is very important. And, I had a wise person say to me, make an appointment with yourself. Like, you're making an appointment with God. I mean, and I find value to that, to say, no, this is an important part of who I am, and this is an important part of what God's calling me to do. Not even Jesus did this work without pulling away and praying. Why do I
Mhm.
think I can do this in a different model than what Jesus showed us? And it's, oh, yeah. Yeah, that's probably why this isn't working. That's probably why I'm feeling tension and frustration. And I think it's also this holistic thing, right? Like mind, body, spirit. I mean, our bodies need to be cared for. We know that. Our minds need to be tended to. We know that. And so I think there's this beautiful way of saying, how am I taking care of my body? How am I taking, am I going, am I taking spiritual retreat at least as often as I'm going to the dentist, which should be twice a year if I'm able, right? Like, gosh, I'm not. Like, well, then let's get that on the calendar. There's some doctor's appointments we have annually. Some of us are going to the doctor every month. Well, okay, why? Because we care to take care of our bodies. We want our bodies to be as healthy as they can and work as well as they can for as long as they can because we care about the people we're sharing our lives with and they want us
Mhm.
around. It's the same thing spiritually too, and all of these things work together. If we're caring for our bodies and we're caring for our minds and taking care of our mental health, and we're taking care of our spiritual health, it's amazing how it transforms your life. Is absolutely amazing. And it's the anchor I hold on to when maybe the health part falls apart or the mental health part is falling apart and there's lament and grief I'm struggling with. Well, gosh, you're going to struggle with that in your spiritual life too. So, and then it's going to have an impact on your body. I think the other thing, Peter, too, and maybe you can speak to this a little bit as well, but the impact of knowing what an unhealthy ministry life feels like when we're not taking time to be with God, when we're not taking time for retreat, when it's all work all the time, tense, stressful. And it's like, gosh, this can't be what God called us to do. This can't be the way. This doesn't
Mhm.
feel right. And
Mhm.
maybe, our congregations and those that we serve, even in that setting, they're more in a corporate civilian lifestyle and they've got that. And it's like we're doing something a little different and off kilter. And so sometimes it's just a miscommunication of what our job should be and what should be the central focus of our ministry. But yeah, we got to pull away because they need to pull away. We need to spend time
Yeah.
with God because we need to witness to that. But yeah, when you know what it's like to be unhealthy spiritually, it makes it ever the more just boldened to me. Yeah, I didn't like that. I didn't like how that felt. It impacted my physical health, my mental health, my family. I need to take care of my spiritual well being. And if what that's asking me is to spend one half day retreat at the Abbey once a month, gosh, that doesn't seem like that's asking that much and what goodness that can bring. But yeah, I mean, being in unhealthy ministry settings teach us this isn't right. What's the opposite of this?
Right. Yeah, to be in that constant response mode of
Mhm.
that you're needed by this person and by this group and by this committee and the drain that that can be on you. I'm always struck by when Jesus says, "I've come that you might have life and life abundantly."
Mm,
And there have certainly definitely been seasons in my life where church like fed that and I experienced abundant life at church. And then there have also been seasons of life where I definitely did not and I wanted to get the heck out of there
mhm,
or be anywhere else but there. And so how do we I guess what I think about here at the Abbey is how do we cultivate that within ourselves, that abundant life? Another word we use all the time is gospel, good news.
mm,
How do we be good
mhm.
news to ourselves and to our families and to the people around us so
Yeah.
that a life in ministry is delightful and good
Mhm.
and rich and not exhausting and stressful and anxiety ridden?
I think this is where my leadership stuff comes in, but I think it's our job to, leaders, the best leaders lead themselves well. And for us in this vocation, how do we lead ourselves well? And I
Mm-hmm.
think it is starting here. For me, coming to the Abbey at the time that I did, sitting down with those prayer stations and reading what I already knew up here, but I was needing to be reminded of at a soul level is that God does love me regardless
Mm-hmm.
of my production. God does love me whether I am serving the most successful church or not. God does love me and wants me to flourish and thrive and live abundantly. And that is not dependent on how many people are worshiping on Sunday morning, how many services I had on Easter Sunday, how much money I was able to raise for X, Y, or Z. It's not all results driven. That I start my day every day, beloved. And
Mm.
I knew it. I preach it. I'd forgotten it on a soul level for myself because I got so enmeshed in this is my role as a leader. This is my job as the senior pastor. I've got to get results, results, results. And I do a lot of revitalization work, which is really heavy lifting and turning things around and tilling the soil and trying to is the soil still good? Or, trying to help people see that God's not done with them yet. And that's a lot of work on I think sometimes our end. And you're trying to convince you're trying to tell people, "Well, listen, God does love you. There's still life here." And
Mhm.
and then you forget in that work that God does love me. There's still life here. And I'm more to God than the productiveness of my ministry. And I needed to be reminded of that. And I think that's where we all need those words like, "Hey, you're a child of God first."
Mhm.
And the way that God, calls people by name and just to sit in a prayer station and be reminded that I have a name and that God knows me by name. And I started beloved, and I am not earning my way into God's love and affirmation. And that was something I needed to learn because of other stuff that I didn't have to earn God's approval. I didn't have to earn God's affirmations or the assurance of God's, like it was just there. And I needed that. And it broke me open in really healing, powerful ways. It was like, yeah, you know what? I wasn't called because I had it all figured out. And I love that old saying, like, God equips the called, God doesn't call the equipped. And I was like,
Uh-huh.
well, thank goodness, because I am not equipped for this gig. But God has made it possible every step of the way.
Uh-huh.
But I lost myself a little bit in that. I lost myself a lot of bit in that. I lost who
Mhm.
Tiffany was. And even over the course of almost 17 years of appointed ministry, it's feeling that multiple times you can get so caught up in the rhythm of life outside of what God's asking us to do, you forget your belovedness. You forget your
Mhm.
identity in Christ. And that's where the Abbey can really step in is to be a place that says, hey, touch base, or as everybody's saying now, touch grass. Like get off your phones and touch grass. And I think for
Yeah.
us in any form of ministry, like get out of your office and touch the face of God for a minute. And that's where I feel like the Abbey is like, hey, come on. We want you to just
Mhm.
touch the face of God for a minute, or be in a place where you allow yourself to be touched by the hand of God in a different, tangible way of like, hey, my beloved, you're doing fine. You're doing a good job. I'm
Mhm.
proud of you. And just having that moment to sit and exhale and go, thanks, God. I needed that. You know, that's so
Mhm.
helpful.
Yeah.
And it keeps us going. We see that the rates of burnout among clergy across denominations are at an all-time actually, it's come down a little bit. We had a little good news
Yeah.
that in the last, I think, study by Barna Group, like the percentage of pastors quitting, the percentage of pastors reporting burnout decreased, I mean, I think by 2 percentage points. It's still really high, but it's real. And why is it real? And how
Yeah.
many of us are saying, Pastor, you need a retreat, and it may not come from our laity because they may not know to tell us that. So if
Mhm.
we can tell each other that, like, you may not be able to take a sabbatical for a couple of years or 6 months or a month. Okay, but take a half a day. Start with a half a day.
Mhm.
Do the marathon, like try half of a 5K. Walk a block. Go for a block. We'll start with a block.
Yeah. Well, Tiffany, you've been hanging around the Abbey now for a little while. Do you have any favorite stories over the last couple years that come to mind for you?
Yeah, I have a lot, but one is as a spouse, knowing that in a time of career transition for my husband, it was a really difficult season for him, and that's his story. But what I'll say is, I knew that I could call you, and I knew that I could call the Abbey and say, I'm going to send my husband. He's just going to come and be. And knowing that I had that resource to even send my partner for life and say, go hang out with God. this would be really good for you. And he did. He went, he did an overnight, and it was the game changer for him. That's a really beautiful story for me from the Abbey. And just the rest of that's his story. But what he encountered, what he experienced there, how that was transformational for him was so huge. I love that story. I love that story for him. I love that
Mm,
story for the Abbey. I love that story for what God has done in and with and through him since. So that's one of my favorite stories is seeing that. Another one of my favorite stories is being able to send another person to the Abbey, just going, "Please go. I'll help with whatever I can." And they went, and it literally was a life-saving moment for them. That to me, knowing again that I had a resource that I could give to someone who needed this time with God so badly, and that time with God was this salvific moment for them. Also one of my favorites. It's like, "Oh my gosh, I know that the Abbey changes lives. I know that the Abbey moves people into places of transition and helps them through that." Uh, that's just I'm like, "Oh, no, that's holy ground." Like, that's not just a place. This is holy ground, and I send not just myself, but people I deeply love and care about to this place because I know that it's holy ground for them. And and then my work with, the School of Spiritual Direction, also on the board, the times that I've gathered in retreat with other people there has also been very rewarding. It's not just individual retreat, but being with the board when we have our annual retreats and meeting there and dreaming together, praying together, sharing moments of what do we think God's doing in this place and why is it important in our world today and who needs to know about it. Hearing not only my own thoughts and feelings, but hearing how the Abbey's impacted others is amazing. And then their dreams and hopes for it. Those are some of my favorite stories. So, dinners and sharing stories that come out of a chalice once a year and hearing how, again, the Abbey's impacted other people. It's just like, yeah, again, holy ground. God is doing something here. But then in the School of Spiritual Direction, spending 2 years there with my cohort, these are deeply beloved people to me. And they have walked with me. We've walked with each other in really sacred moments. And the School of Spiritual Direction pushed a lot of us, I think all of us, to go places we may not have willingly gone on our own. And at times I was even a little irritated by it, but I do that only in like humor and going, well, this is just rude that I'm having to unpack this right now. And it's like, all right, God, I see what you're doing, but I just don't appreciate it. But some of my favorite stories from that, I mean, I went through a very, very traumatic situation almost a year ago now. And coming a couple months after that, back to my cohort and sharing that story, I was scared to share that story. It was hard to speak it out loud. And that whole place just transformed into a slice of what I consider heaven on earth to be like because I was held. Even in a moment where the reality of the story that I was telling and, the embodiment of God in that story, I think it kinda had us all just kind of frozen, and I was in a moment of kind of internal panic, like, "Oh my gosh, I just trauma dumped on all of these people, and what did I do? I forgot myself. I'm a pastor, you don't bleed out in people." And then it was like, "Wait a minute." And then you had this moment where you said, "Let's all just hold this space together." And I was like, "Wait, again, I'm not pastor in this room. I'm not mom in this room. I'm Tiffany in this room. And in this room, I'm a child of God. And these people are holding this sacred space and holding me here." I never felt anything like that. It was so tender, so hospitable, so kind. It was the epitome of empathy and grace and mercy. And I haven't felt that kind of love in that kind of situation ever before. And so I didn't know how to move from the grief and brokenness of what happened. I had no clue how to move forward in my life in any aspect. That moment of holding that space was the moving factor. Like, we didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to do anything. The Spirit of God did what the Spirit of God was going to do. And that was, I can look back now and see that as a very pivotal moment of change for me. That is a wonderful moment. And then knowing that it wasn't very long after that sacred moment that the room was filled with laughter and tears, not from just sorrow, but tears from just whatever one of my colleagues had said was so ridiculously funny in that moment that we broke out in such deep laughter that it was, again, soul laughter. And we're crying from laughter. And we can, in the same space, hold the painful lament and realities of the things that happen to us in life and being human and the ability to laugh even in the face of pain, and we can do that together. I will forever love the Abbey for that. I will forever love my cohort for that, and that is going to be a moment that's gonna be a core memory I will hold with me for the rest of my life, was that moment. So,
Wow.
now I can't walk into that front room of the Abbey without feeling the warmth and the fullness of that core moment.
Wow. That's just so good that God made that space for you.
Yeah,
Yeah, just for you.
yeah.
That's just wild. I'm grateful for you in that.
Thanks.
Yeah. So
Well, and
you mentioned
I'm grateful, Peter, honestly, for the ways that you have responded to the Spirit in your life. Because of that faithfulness, those spaces get to exist for other people. And I wonder too, when God put that vision on your heart, was that part of it? Just to create the kind of space where God could do incredible things in it like that for a countless number of folks?
probably not like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. There wasn't that
That's a
plan
little
with that
different.
picture in mind of like, you know what, we're gonna make this just for Tiffany and this
No,
moment
yeah,
that's coming.
no. Yeah, no.
Yeah, I mean, there was certainly this burden of having been a witness of other colleagues' pain and frustration
Mm,
of like, why does
mm,
it have to be this way?
mm.
And wanting to create a space that might offer some alternative or some healing or some fresh way of experiencing God and being renewed. So maybe in a general sense, but not in these particular specific senses. So it's
Sure.
yeah, thank you for sharing your story. That's
Yeah.
because it's just really humbling to just be able to be a witness of what God does in this space. So you've mentioned that you have been serving on the board of directors,
Yes.
serving behind the scenes of the Sabbath Life now for about 3.5 years. What would you say is
Yeah.
something that you hope for the Abbey and the Sabbath Life?
I hope it always exists as a beautiful, holy expression of God's ever present love in our wild and crazy world. I hope that people become more aware of its existence and not just on the periphery, but that they choose to respond to the invitation to encounter the space for whatever it's going to be for them. My biggest hope is that people would find it, would go to it, would experience it, and would see it as, in some ways, a tool in their ministry toolbox that has to come out. Like you got to take this out. What a beautiful gift to have. Unwrap it, for crying out loud. You've got this beautiful gift you know exists. And you're staring at it and you're going, what lovely wrapping paper. I bet whatever is inside of that is great. Okay, we'll go pick it up and unwrap it. And you're going to find that, yes, what exists in there is incredible. And then engage with what exists in that gift, whatever that is for them. I think my heart aches because I know how many folks could benefit from the exhale that they would find
Mm,
crossing the threshold. And I don't know how to move folks from point A to point B to say, open the gift. You're worthy of this gift. That's my biggest hope, is that I believe this place is going to continue to exist to help people and to hold people. And so I guess my biggest hope and prayer, what I constantly try to work towards, is helping people to know it exists and to get them to open the gift. And
mm,
so do yourself a favor, do something for yourself that is rewarding on a deep spiritual level, and open the gift that's not too far away. It's worth it. It's so worth
Mm.
it.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Tiffany. Hey, I've got a
Yeah.
handful of questions here that I'm asking all of our guests just for fun.
Okay.
So this is just like a lightning round of like top of
Okay.
mind answers. Don't think too hard about these. Okay. Are you game for it?
Okay, I'll try. Okay.
All right. What's the last book that you read?
I am currently reading a book and I cannot remember the title. It's one that was suggested to me by Melissa, who I've worked with through the School of Spiritual Direction. It's about birds and it's about grief as you connect with watching birds and the different kind of birds. And I can't believe I'm forgetting the title. It's fantastic. And I bought this book for 4 different people because I've now morphed into being a bird watcher since my traumatic event. And this just is such a great book on grief. And now I'll have to send you the information so you can put it with this. But it's a great book.
Well, awesome. If you could have a job that was different than the one you have right now, what would it be?
I have long dreamt of 2 things. One would be to get to travel around the world and just tell people how much God loves them. I would love for somebody to pay for me to do that. That I would love to get to do. And I have dreamt of writing books and poetry since I was a kid. And that has always been on the top of my heart. It's just, I can't feed my kids with that right now. So that I would love to do that. The other one would
Not
just be to
yet.
totally retire in a cottage in the mountains and raise chickens. So if I disappear, I'm raising chickens in the mountains, Peter,
Poetry. That sounds
and
like a
writing
great life.
poetry. Doesn't it? I know.
Yeah. So if you could travel to any place that you've never been before, where would you go?
Gosh, I've always dreamt of going to Italy just to immerse myself in the art and mosaics but the other part of that is there are several mountains, not just in Italy, but I want to go to all these different mountains across the world. I'm a mountain girl and I want to hike in different places. I don't want to do like brutal Olympic style hiking. Just I want to hike in the Alps and I want to hike in the mountains in Italy and I want to be in the mountains everywhere I can go.
Awesome. Do you have a comfort food movie, like a movie you can watch 100 times and it never gets old for you?
Yes, it's a tie between Speed and Tombstone. That's so weird, but they're both comfort movies. Can't explain it, I love them. So,
That's
I
awesome. I
mean,
love it.
maybe core parts of my adolescence, I guess,
Nostalgic for old times.
for old time's sake. Yes.
Yeah. What's your favorite place to eat a meal?
On my grandmother's table, but I haven't been
Mm,
able to be at that table for a number of years.
mm,
So anywhere I am with people I love who love to laugh and love to share stories. I love to sit at tables and share stories and laugh and talk about the things we're grateful for. So any table
mm.
that has those kind of people, is my kind of table
Yeah.
to eat
I
at.
love that. If we were going to karaoke, what's your song?
Fancy by Reba.
Great. That's great.
Yes.
What would you say makes you laugh the hardest?
My gosh. A really well done Saturday Night Live skit.
Mm.
That or my husband. My husband does really, really funny things, and they're never the intentionally things he's trying to be funny with. It's just randomly living his life, and it's very funny.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, Tiffany, I'm so grateful for you. Thank you so much for
Hey,
your time and being with us today. Listeners, thank you so much for being with us as well. You can learn more about the ministry of the Sabbath Life on our website, thesabbathlife.com. And you can find information there all about booking a personal retreat for yourself or for a group here at the Abbey of the Heights. And if you would like to make a financial gift to support the ministry of the Sabbath Life, you can also do that on the website at thesabbathlife.com/give, because we exist because of the generosity of people just like you. And then very last thing, be sure that you're subscribing to the podcast so that you're able to catch the next stories that we share. If you like what you're hearing, please also leave us a review so that others can more easily discover us. Help us spread the word about the Abbey of the Heights and a life of rest. So until next time, may you know in the deepest parts of your soul that you are God's beloved.